Okay, hello everyone. We're just going to wait a minute, allowing for people to join us, and then we'll get started right away. Okay, I think a minute has passed, so that's good enough for now. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our first public event for our second cohort of Founder Institute Qatar. We're very excited to be bringing this event and starting off with an amazing lineup of speakers, all here to share their wisdom, share their knowledge, and share their experiences on how they are becoming and are the top global entrepreneurs in tech. This is one of the amazing features and amazing pluses that we have within Founder Institute, is we have a network of founders and speakers and mentors that spans the world and goes all across, so we can pick from a huge pool of experience and expertise that we can share with you. So without further ado, I'm just going to be sharing a short presentation with you to tell you what we are doing today. Please let me know if you see my screen. Are you seeing the presentation or the...
We do.
Okay, great. So once again, thank you so much and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to How They Did It: Success Stories and Advice from Global Tech Entrepreneurs. This is the Founder Institute Qatar chapter, and we're super excited to be launching our second cohort that is coming up really soon. So just to give you a very brief background on Founder Institute, and then we're going to be talking about with our speakers on their intros and their background stories. And then we're going to be talking about success factors of how to build a global tech enterprise from that perspective, or tech venture. And then we'll be taking a few questions before moving on to Airmeet for some networking with us. Founder Institute, spanning out of or coming out of Silicon Valley out of 2009, is the world's largest pre-seed accelerator program in the world at this point in time in terms of numbers. It spans over 200 cities, 90 countries, 14,000 mentors, although I think these figures might need to be updated as well, 3,000 alumni, and over $30 billion portfolio value of all the companies and all the founders that have started their companies through Founder Institute. What was the belief of what Founder Institute is that entrepreneurs can create that real impact that we need in the world. The world is broken, as we know. There are a lot of issues, but it is people and individuals who have aspirations that could change and impact the societies within where they live and also go across the globe. So what the program does from that perspective, and the core program of the Founder Institute, which is 14 weeks in length, it is a pre-seed, it helps pre-seed founders within the idea and the growth or the traction stages to be able to get further traction, get the funding that they need. We don't offer the funding, but we definitely have funding institutions and investors within our network that support the founders from that perspective. And the beautiful thing is just that 14-week, and as we say, accelerator, so people need to be expected to really strap on because it goes really fast and there's a lot of work that is involved in it, but they come out on the other side ready to talk to investors and ready to be immersed in a network for life. And that is part of the beautiful thing about Founder Institute, is once you're in for life, and there's a lot of support that comes along with it. So we have a series of events. As you can see, this is the first one, as I just said. So we have a series of public events that are aimed to share value with everyone that attends them. Today's event is the first of them, and then we have, coming up in a couple of weeks, the Pitch Your Startup Idea. So it's an opportunity, again, to pitch your startup. Look at the links, check out the links of fi.co/apply/Qatar, and that's where you'll get further information and you can apply there. We've got the Female Founder Roundtable, always a favorite of mine. Startup funding in Doha, and we're going to be talking to some of the people and the top players within the investment arena from that perspective. And then we always love to bring a special angle with our event, Engineer to Entrepreneur, the startup basics for techies, those who switch hats and switch from an engineer to an entrepreneur. The program runs from November 15th to 2022 to March 9th, 2023. And as I said, the link is there. And I'm sure Katie, a beautiful co-director for the Qatar chapter, will be putting in the comments as well. That is fi.co/apply/Qatar. Of course, without further ado, I'm going to be introducing the lady on the panel today first, Diala Daoud. She is a co-founder of Launch DXB and also involved with Tasmo Accelerator. We have Leo. I'm so sorry, Leo. I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your family name. Is it Gmeiner?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. He is the co-founder and the CEO of eSchool Guardian, and Ahmed Fawzi, of course, one of our top speakers. We love having you all the time, Ahmed, and founder and CEO of Mice Tribe. So thank you so much once again for joining us. I'm going to ask each of you, please, to give us a 1 to 2 minute introduction about yourself, and then that's going to kick us off from that perspective. So Diala, ladies first, please go ahead and introduce yourself further.
Sure, happy to. Hello, everyone. My name is Diala Daoud, and as Dr. Hanan mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Launch DXB. We are a platform that supports early-stage founders in Dubai. So we act even at an earlier stage than Founder Institute, and we're partners of Founder Institute itself, by the way. So we work closely with different private and government sector players in the country in order to help empower entrepreneurs and put them on the right track to build their ventures in Dubai and in UAE in general. And in addition to that role, which I'm currently like a partner and a co-founder, I also recently joined Tasmo Accelerator, which is a new initiative launched by the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology and Ooredoo in Qatar, in order to help empower tech entrepreneurs who wish to expand and to even explore the startup ecosystem here in Doha. So we primarily focus on 5 sectors, which are transportation, health, logistics, environment, and sports. And we are kicking off our accelerator by the end of this year. And it will be our very first cohort. So it's exciting times for us. That's it for me. I'm really happy to be here and to discuss further during this session.
Thank you so much, Diala. Leo, would you please give us an introduction about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm Leo Gmeiner. I'm an entrepreneur in Brazil for 20 years now. It's my 4th company, which is a startup called School Garden. Besides that, I'm also a director at the Founder Institute São Paulo, and I have some other roles here in Brazil, such as a teacher in an MBA course in a college here in São Paulo on lecturing entrepreneurship and innovation for the students as well. It's a real pleasure to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you for joining us from across a few big ponds just to get all the way over here. Ahmed, you're definitely one of our repeat speakers, and people love having you. We love having you because you always share a lot as well, being a global entrepreneur yourself. So please do share a little bit about your story as well.
Okay, so Ahmed Fawzi, I'm the founder of Mice Tribe. But before Mice Tribe, I always like to look for technologies that are underutilized and play with them and try to introduce something new. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that I was fired from every job that I've ever worked. So there was a no-brainer at some point that I had to do something on my own. So I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2007, was my first startup, which is still existing until today. And the whole idea was how to utilize, again, underutilized technologies into different segments and sectors and so on. So it sold a lot of research, a lot of R&D cases and so on, until at some point I started meeting investors, and everything started like, I had to focus on one vertical instead of 6 or 7. So I started exiting from multiple companies, until now I have all my focus on 2 ventures, basically, which is Mice Tribe and Technovations. Yeah, that's it. And I love all of this work because when I started in 2007, I didn't have anyone to give me any advice. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing in Qatar by 2007 until maybe 2012 when Cubic started, and it created an ecosystem, really like a startup ecosystem in Qatar. And yeah, it was it was an amazing transformation. And this is why today, whenever I find any opportunity in Qatar or anywhere else where I can, share what I've learned so people don't do the same mistakes again, then I love to take part of it. And
Thank you
so yeah,
so
thank you
much.
so much for this opportunity as well for me.
Thank you. I love that because as you were saying, when I first started with the Business Doctor, my venture, I used to say, been there, done that, and I'm going to show you how not to do it. So people's like, oh, what? I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. But
Yeah.
You've actually brought up a very interesting point for us to kick off the conversation. And Leo, I'm going to start by asking you this question. The ecosystem, how important is it for an entrepreneur that's still venturing out to be involved or aware of what is around in the ecosystem for their success?
I would say it's crucial. It's how we are going to learn from others, but also to get some real support. So one thing that I learned during the years when I left the old economy and dive into this new economy, this startup and this innovation ecosystem, was that collaboration is something really real in this environment, different from the old economy, regular traditional companies. So we can and we have to use this in our favor. So in my point of view, it's the only way to do so. So once you have a real problem to solve, second step would be getting some help, support, and advice from everyone else.
Yes, I totally agree. Diala, you've worked in more than one ecosystem within the Middle East, or so I know you've worked in UAE, as you shared, in Beirut, in Lebanon, and over here as well in
Jordan, Palestine, Egypt, Saudi.
Exactly. Tell us a little bit again from your perspective on the ecosystem, and is it about the entrepreneurs enhancing it by sharing, as Ahmed's saying, by sharing their own experiences, or does it need to be like the other way around? An entrepreneur needs the ecosystem to support them first before they can give back.
And actually, it's a two-way thing. So an ecosystem cannot exist without founders. And at the same exact time, founders, I don't believe they can properly flourish in their own businesses and ideas unless they belong and they have the right support from community and ecosystem around them. I'm a hardcore believer in the importance of building a community around you as a founder, regardless of your industry, regardless of your geography. You never know who you're connecting with and what they can connect you with in terms of resources, them being investors, learning resources, mentors, clients, what have you. So for me, an entrepreneur should always be open to networking, to getting to meet new people from, again, across geographies, across ecosystems, across industries, because you never know who will have that secret key to open you a door of opportunities. So that's my point, frankly, and something I also came to realize based on my own personal experience working across multiple geographies.
I love that. Ahmed, back to you again regarding the ecosystem. You've worked and been immersed in more than one ecosystem, and I know that you've got a whole diversity as well of countries that you've worked in. So again, is it about where you started and how you can benefit from the ecosystem, or is it about what the ecosystem can offer you so you can flourish and give back?
I would definitely say the same. It's a bit of both. So when I was working kind of like solo, there was no ecosystem. Of course, there was an ecosystem, but you couldn't call it an ecosystem. It was maybe like 5-6 entrepreneurs that were, they were all friends and speak to one another and so on. But then we didn't have anyone who would take the job of, let's have a networking event, let's bring some investors and train them how to be better investors, how to, all of these kind of things. And that really created conversations that we didn't know existed, and we swapped cards with people we never knew that they could be beneficial for our businesses. So definitely this whole networking and build up of ecosystem helped us tremendously, because it even, not only that, it gave us confidence when we go and speak to clients. You have more insights of what is actually in the market and where do you stand. One thing I think like a lot of entrepreneurs have is this, yes, we go on stages, present and pitch and all of that, but we always have this thing inside of us, is like, what if this doesn't, like hit the right numbers and so on. And how else would you know unless you talk to people and open doors and connections and so on. So definitely the ecosystem, I think, is even more important. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Leo, you also brought up another very important, I believe, one of the success factors or the contributing factors to success for an entrepreneur, which is the idea and the objective. What are they trying to get out of it? And we always talk, okay, there's a lot of talk about passion. Is it about passion, or is it about the market opportunity, or is it about just innovation? What, from your perspective, what really is, if you prioritize them, how would you prioritize them?
I would say it may be passion, but I would say it's also passion for solving problems, not passion for your concepts, your ideas, your solution, or the solution you eventually imagine, but always by finding and solving real problems that are really damaging people anyway. So maybe financially, maybe emotionally, whatever it is, if they are real, if they are bad enough to motivate people to leave their comfort zone and pay for a solution, you're doing the right thing. So I would say passion for solving problems.
I love that. I haven't heard it together before, but I love it, and I'm going to use it and refer it to you. Passion for solving
Awesome.
problems. Ahmed, passion for solving problems. Do you think that is the core of your why? We know that you need your why to wake up every day, go through the challenges of entrepreneurship and building up a venture. So is passion for solving problems the core of your why, or does your why have to be very personal for you to keep going?
No, definitely it's the core, because it's if you meet every single person today and you ask them, do you have a good business idea? Everyone is sitting on something. They have an idea, but they don't do something about it. And then you meet few people that will take any idea and go try. And I would rather fail 100 times, and learn throughout the process and until something hits. Rather than actually keep, making studies and so on before I make one business or execute one idea. And I think this what translates into passion. Like that, if you have that idea, you have this drive, you need to build it somehow. Doesn't matter if it looks ugly or not, and so on. You just need to see it happening and take it to other people and say, what do you think of this? And collect feedback and so on, right? So I think it's, passion is the core. One thing that people keep telling me also is that when I started in 2017, I was not profitable until, I started in 2007. I was not profitable maybe until 2017, or 2015. And people were telling me, why are you not giving up? Like, it's weird, man. Like, you have all of these companies, but none of them is making you buying yachts somewhere and so on. And
the misconception of entrepreneurship.
And I never had the right answer. I never knew, why am I not really stopping? Maybe it's I'm stupid for pursuing that for too long. But definitely it was that drive. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been here today, I think.
Yes, and you brought up a very important point. So Diala, from the passion for solving problems, your why, as in your why waking up, why are you continuing 10 years down the line and you're still not seeing the yachts and the Versace suitcases passing by? And the part that is the contribution to society, where do you see the importance? If you would prioritize these, where would you see them from your own perspective in your journey as well?
Frankly, I can't add much to what they said. I do agree fully that in case you are not personally driven by what you're doing, regardless of the incentives you have and regardless of the opportunities that might be available for you in an ecosystem or a market, you will not be really able to wake up, as you mentioned, in the morning to actually pursue your idea and to work on it. So I believe that there should be a huge personal drive behind everything that you do. Number one, believing, as you mentioned, in a problem that you're solving and being passionate about solving this problem. The second thing is being passionate about the solution you're bringing, either the technology you're introducing or the way you are going to solve this problem, because also the way you approach it brings a lot of value to the overall equation in general, and also keeps your drive moving and you laser focused even in actually approaching the things you wanted to approach and the company you want to build all in all. So I believe like a personal drive is literally at the core of everything. The why is really differ from one person to the other. From me, I just love literally creating communities wherever I go. And this is the whole idea behind Launch the XB, why it started and what we're doing. So this was literally something driven by personal interest. We started it as a casual meetup for startups. We realized there was a huge gap in the market. Startups and founders really appreciate what we're doing. Eventually, we built a startup accordingly. So from a personal drive, it turned out into a business opportunity and into a startup platform by itself. So this was my journey again, and this is something that worked well for me. So I believe the personal drive is the most important thing.
It is, but you've also brought up something, and following up on what Ahmed was saying, I want to ask you, Diala, about it. The profit part or the revenues, you know, we say the revenues first, but people always think there's profit with the revenues. There's the revenue and there's profit. They're separate, they're separate elements to the equation. But from your perspective, if the revenues aren't coming in from day one, because that's a misconception of entrepreneurship, it's overnight success financially. Again, how important, or what was your experience of how do you start pivoting, and how do you understand that it will take time for the revenues to come in?
Exactly. There is a huge difference between making profit and making revenue. And for me, a founder should actually be really reasonable in how passionate they are about their idea. Because if you're not generating any revenues and definitely not making any profits, you probably are doing something wrong. So you have to actually question yourself. What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time on such an idea? What should be done or what can be done to make this idea a better performing one that can at least bring in some revenue? So you should always, on a continuous level, keep on asking yourself what can be done to increase our revenues, and eventually in a 3 years, 4 years, 10 years period to get to actually make profits for your own company. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, there are a lot of misconceptions in the ecosystem. So literally my advice always for any startup I sit with and I mentor is that please do not follow someone else's journey by the letter or by the word, because every entrepreneur's journey is quite different. The way Ahmed succeeded is different than Leo's, is different than mine. The ecosystem we operate in, they have completely different dynamics, even though we had access to similar resources. But the dynamics in a certain market, in a certain industry, the time you're launching your company at, everything comes to play and really affects you to a huge level. So if a startup broke even in 3 years, it doesn't mean that the rule of thumb is that actually every single startup should break even in 3 years. Again, it's really specific for you. Keep your calculations and numbers in check. Make sure that you are generating revenue, at least, that you're not literally getting yourself broke, consciously getting yourself broke by bootstrapping all your resources in. And keep on assessing what can be done with your idea. As you mentioned, pivoting the solution, pivoting the technology, the user interface, anything that you can change to make people more interested in your idea, to invest or in your product or service in general, to invest in it and eventually to bring some revenues your way.
Thank you, Diala. Leo, I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Diala is saying. So we have 3 very important, when it comes to revenues and the financials of a startup, we have 3 important milestones. We have the first revenues coming in, we have the break-even point, and we have when we start making profit. So from your perspective, is that something that contributes to your success to be able to keep revising yourself when it comes to the financials? Or is it you need to take a strategy, stick with it for some time, and then reassess? What's your experiences on these 3 milestones when it comes to especially tech startups?
Awesome question. I would say there's another topic that we should be concerned about, that is pricing. A lot of times we price it really bad, so we are selling a lot, but we're not profitable. So it's important to understand that as well. And most of the time we're not, no one taught us how to do that, so we have to be concerned about it. But I would say you have to be open to change your strategy to to move to another space, or to maybe even change your revenue model if you are not able to achieve this treat, or if you're not selling, you're not profitable. So don't need to stick with one single strategy, or even for so long with your strategy. You should try and check in, as Diala said, check in your KPIs, and then change. For example, just to bring some real experience from my side. When I started School Garden, we never thought it would be a SaaS. I had no idea what a SaaS was, so I could not imagine. But once I started talking to other players, other schools providers, we could understand that the project model would not fit to the school environment. So we have to change our revenue model and resize a lot of things. So I do believe we have to do that. We are about to launch a new features. Probably this one is going to be pay-per-use, because it seems to be fair and more affordable to schools. So you have to try every time.
And SaaS is software as a service, just for everyone that needs to.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
No problem. Okay, so thank you for sharing that, Leo. And as you said, Ahmed, again, going back to your story, and as you said, 10 years down the line, you're still not making profit, but I'm sure you're making some revenues and stuff. Is it about the revenue model? Is it about the business model? Or is it about the market you are operating in, where you need to reconsider, it's like, okay, I need to uplift and kind of cross borders, go somewhere else because this is working here? What's your experience with that?
There's so many things, really. Like, where do you start from? I mean, maybe the reason why I was still, for sure, definitely it's a talent to know when to pivot. Okay, and to have that like, that you can spot when the demand and supply are not in line, and know how to pivot. Definitely, that's one thing. But I was learning so much every day when I started, and I think maybe that was the main drive. So yes, passion was not, it is the core, but it was not enough. You need to, for example, after a few years, I learned that, okay, I need to always keep hunting for the smartest people and seduce them to join my business. I learned how to delegate and trust. It's not my process, but it's this is someone that I chose to help in the business, and now I have to trust the process. The pricing, as Leo said, it was, until today, actually, it is something that is, you do a lot of work with it, and you never had that sweet spot until, like, it's not easy. So I think it's so many factors. I can go on and on, really. Yeah, I don't know if that was your question, but
it definitely fulfills that, as you said. And I think this is a very important element about entrepreneurship, and especially when it comes to tech-based, tech-enabled businesses. It is, everything is connected. You can't shift one thing, you can't look at one thing without looking at other elements. And pivoting is really, really important, as you said. And this has become a main theme for the past couple of years because of the COVID and the pandemic. Everyone had to think, how do I pivot, especially for businesses that were dependent on in-person rather than tech-based or tech-enabled channels. So this is why we have these conversations, is to kind of really, I want to say, dissipate the misconceptions about, oh, you choose one thing, you go down the route, and that's where you go to success. No, you get to the fork, you have to choose left or right, up or down, and you have to keep amending and changing, and as well as adjusting to the internal and the external environments in the markets. Like, we've got the war going on, we've got, shortages all across the globe, and everything, the butterfly effect, everything is impacted. So it is very important to stay, as you said, stay vigilant. As Leo said, you have to look at your pricing. Diala, you talk about the business models and revenue models, and not to be stagnant. And I think this is a very important word that comes up in some is what you guys have been sharing, is stagnation and entrepreneurship is like shooting yourself in the foot. You can't just be adamant and very stagnant. And also, I think the other word is, I can't remember the other word, but anyhow, it's about how not to pivot in business and accept it. We have a question since this is a...
Sorry, I just want to say
Go ahead.
something. Like, you know,
Yes.
because I feel like now we're making it sound that it's like rocket science.
No,
But it's
no.
really not, right? It's really not. There is a lot of intuition in this. You know, there is a lot of intuition in this. And once you start, you will, not everything you can find in the books, right? But you keep getting these signals from the market, from your networking, from people around you, and so on. And one thing that was really, that helped me a lot in the beginning was that when there was no ecosystem, there was no programs as well. And it was every time I had a problem, we had to come up with a solution. Later, we found out that there is something called the business model. Oh, we had something that was very close to that. Later, we found out that there is a tool that does blah, 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 and so on, and all of these studies and things. And when you do it that way, it becomes really fruitful. It becomes, it really, you know, so what I just wanted to say is that I'm hoping that what we're saying here doesn't make people intimidated by this journey or something and thinking that, you know, it
shouldn't.
Right?
No, that's the whole aim. I mean, we're not trying to intimidate anyone, but we're also trying to bust some misconceptions. So it's not overnight success. It is not a one path. You have to, as you said, it's about intuition. It's about, you know, being connected, as Diala had shared earlier, being connected to the ecosystem, understanding from the learnings. What Leo said is about understanding that maybe you can need to shift your business model, a SaaS instead of an app or a platform or something else. So it is about learning, taking the learnings from what's being shared, but also seeing what works for you and what doesn't. Again, the gurus, there are a lot of gurus out there that are trying to sell it's my way or the highway. And people start freaking out because it's not working for them. And they start thinking it's something wrong with them and their business idea. But it's not about that. It's about this is convenience and applicability, and this just doesn't work with this idea. So that's where we want to have this conversation of, you guys, you have been there, you've done that. And as we said, what to do and what not to do, because these are both important in this equation. There's a question, having that this is a very organic discussion. Sometimes I just need my reading glasses, of course, to read the question, but this, and he's asked, have you ever come across a situation where your personal vision for your startup was not aligned with the vision of your investors and you had to pivot? And how did you manage conflicting priorities? And I think this question is a great question. Thank you, Ali. And let's have you all answer it. Leo, I'll start with you and moving on to Diala, please.
Let's go ahead. I think this question talks about with the intuition Ahmed just said. So you have your points, you have your goals and this feeling every single entrepreneur has. So you have to listen to that, but obviously you also have to listen from other people, to learn from their knowledge, to learn from their errors as well. But I would say if you are sure what you are doing is the right thing to do, or you are solving a real problem, you should find another investor. Probably you're going to find someone that fits your own thesis, your own planning, your own goals and purpose. So try to find another investor. I would say that. But be sure you are solving a real problem, first of all.
Yeah, I love the addition at the end, because that is also very important for someone's like, I don't like you, moving on, but they're like, you're not really doing the right thing. Diala, what's your take on that? How do you talk about managing conflicting priorities when it comes to investment?
Frankly, as Leo mentioned, even though sometimes you might be limited on the access you have to different investors and to different capital opportunities, however, you have to be really careful in terms of who you actually get to work with and who are the investors you want to bring on board. So similar to the idea that Leo shared, you need to really assess what is this investor bringing on board, and not only in terms of capital. Are they going to open some doors and connections for you? Are they going to be mentoring you? Do they belong to a similar ecosystem and environment or industry like you? And can they bring value from a user or a client point of view also on what you're building? Or are they only giving you money and telling you to probably pursue an idea they had in mind and they didn't find the resources to push it forward? So you have to be really careful about what are they bringing to the table, and to really evaluate it compared to what they're asking you actually to do out of it. And the majority of this, the really speeches or talks about entrepreneurship, they always highlight that usually the founder knows way more about their ecosystem, their environment, their space, their industry than the investor itself. Why? Because you've been invested in this space for some time. You have done a lot of market research, you talked with prospect clients, you validated your idea. So you really know what might work. Definitely there's nothing that will work. Literally, market experiences show us that even though studies tell you that a business model probably sounds like the most successful one, when you take it to the market, real numbers might actually show something different. So even though your studies show you that your business is actually really has a promising future in a certain market, even with this information, you are better situated than your investor to make such a decision. Is it a smart decision to pivot or is it not? And accordingly, you will have to decide. Again, you might be limited on finding capital, but please don't sell your soul or sell your company for the first investor that comes on board.
I love that, Diala, and that's also very bold, just as Leo shared. One of the authors, I can't remember their name right now, I'm sorry, my memory is failing at parts. He says, don't prostitute your brand. And he was talking about some of the things, which was really bold. I was like, okay, hang on a second. I'm listening to this. I was like, oh, it means don't just kind of shove it in wherever you think this is where success will come or money will come or anything. Ahmed, your relationship with investors and when it comes to conflict management, how do you go about it?
Well, definitely, if you are having that conflict, it means that you needed another investor, or you need to look for another investor. But all the startup programs that we have right now makes entrepreneurs feel that they need to get the investors' approval. When it's not really like that, it's a business deal. You're sitting on a table. You're both on the same sides. Both of you are going to benefit from this opportunity, and you bargain. You bargain about what you have and what you're bringing on the table, and the opportunity that you're bringing to them, and they bargain back about the evaluation and so on. And if you run it that way, you're not looking for anyone's approval just because you need the money or so on, or because the program pushes you to do that, then it becomes somehow different. You somehow, in the end, find the chemistry, right? Chemistry in all of these meetings, and you find an investor that you just feel this connection. You love one another. They are passionate about what you have, and you are passionate about, their character. And this works. These are the type of investors that don't annoy you all the time, that even if you don't bring the numbers that you promised, they're still supporting you. They're still going and talking to everyone about you. But also, maybe we're also speaking about early stage, because I don't know, this is not going to happen at a Series B, for example. At a Series B, these conflicts will happen, and maybe you will be losing more and more of control, and there will be, it's a lot more bureaucratic. But in the beginning, it's a lot of fun, so seed, even Series A, like all of that, it's a lot of fun in the beginning. So you shouldn't face that problem in the beginning, for sure.
Thank you, Ahmed. And I love that you spoke about this, the phases as well. And this is in alignment with a question we just got from Shadi. Hang on, so I can read it properly, please. Okay, so he says, Shadi says, when is the best time to onboard the investor, before or after the validation phase? And what's the best way, or what's the way to find an investor? Leo, I'm going to go to you. Speaking of, we're talking about Founder Institute, and you as well, you're involved with Founder Institute as a co-director, and this is a pre-seed accelerator program. So we're looking at companies that are either in the idea stage or in the traction stage. Is this a time to be looking for an investor, or do we wait until post-validation, post-MVP, and then we have an up and running, we have some revenues? And the second question that is a follow-up as well, and I'm asking this to all of you, angel investment versus venture capital. When do we approach who? Since we're talking investment.
Yeah, it's really two good questions, actually. So I would say you have to seek investors as much far from validation phase. So post-revenue, I would say, as more sure you have a market, it's probably the moment to seek an investor. If you're going to find investor or to bring in an investor too soon, you are probably not doing a great deal, because you're probably sharing a lot of your equity for not a lot of money. So you're not going to probably have enough time to prove your product to fit your product to the market. So I would say wait for how long you can wait. But sometimes it's not the reality. So sometimes you have to find an investor. And going to your second question, I think these angel investors could be a solution. Our angel investors are always a good solution for this initial moment. It's still waiting for how long as you can. And the difference between those, I would say, is how you're going to deal with that. So more money, more control, or more willing for control. So it's completely different relationship between those two parts. Anyways, I try to do this myself to understand what is the big step I want to have in order to understand if I need or not a new investment round. So if I don't need for my next steps, if I can do this bootstrapping, I would do that. But if the step is too large, if I need more support, more money, more team, whatever, I would try to bring in some new investors so that I can move forward and move faster.
Thank you, Leo. Ahmed, you were just talking about the fun part of bringing on an investor. Is the fun part pre or post validation and revenue?
I just want to stress on what Leo said. Some businesses requires investment from day one. It could be something in research and or you're building a physical product or something like this, and you need to convince the investors from day one about your idea, so they would put money in. And sometimes you can bootstrap. You can use your own money and your own knowledge in something and bootstrap. Ali said, or sorry, not Ali, Shadi. He said that validation needs money. Validation doesn't need money, really. Not always. Like, it depends on the business, but it most of the time it doesn't really need money. I started my first venture with 6,000 riyals, and I knew that this was
would have $2,000. Yep.
Yeah, less than $2,000. So it was very hard. I'm not saying that it was easy, but maybe when you have a lot of money as well, or you have money that's coming from investors in the beginning, you can afford to make more mistakes. So when you have problems, you need to really focus. What is the problem and what am I solving? And you need to compromise on a lot of things so you can continue and validate your idea with that. When to accept the investment, as Leo said, wait as much as you can, as long as you're not turning into a family business, as long as you're not turning into a slow, family business that will reach that target in 10 years. If you can reach that target in 10 years and the only challenge is the money, then it's time to raise. It's definitely time to raise. So if you feel like you're getting into that, then yeah, it's time to raise. I'm saying this, but I'm doing the opposite as well. But on the other hand, I still own, and the founders, I still own more than 80% of MyStripe. And me and plus the founders, we own more than 90%. So our investors altogether are still in the 10%, actually even less than that. So this is today when we started getting big business and so on. It gives us a lot of power in negotiation with the next investor. Especially when they see that people are joining the company, like key employees and so on, for certain stock options, or someone joins because they were promised 0.5% and they just quit their awesome job that they have been doing for I don't know what, and is paying them twice as much to come here. Then this also gives you a lot of bargaining power with the investors. I don't
that.
like raising from VCs. If I would compare both, of course, you need them at some point. But I mean, in the beginning, I would opt for if you're building a SaaS solution or something that doesn't require $1 million from day one, then angel investment is probably the best way. Because you go VC, you need to know how to read a term sheet. You need to know how to. You need a lawyer for sure. You need to educate yourself about a lot of things. So why do that?
Yes, that's true. Diala, following up from here, then when we talk investment and the phases, so we have bootstrapping. That is an option, of course. That's where you start kind of putting in your own money and making it very limited. You've got the FFF, friends, family, and fools, who will be the first ones to join you and kind of put in money with you.
Or fans.
Fans.
Family,
Thank
friends,
you.
and fans.
I've been trying to replace the fools because I was like, no, someone was with me. They're not fools, they're fans. So friends, families, and fans. That's where you get it. Or you go angel investor, venture capital. From your perspective, what comes where, or who comes in where?
Actually, many factors come to play as well. And similar to what Ahmed mentioned earlier, there is no secret somehow formula for success in a startup. And there is literally even investment in anything pertaining to launching a startup or a new venture. There is no set formula that an entrepreneur needs to follow for them to guarantee success. There are so many factors that come to play, including the industry you're in, the type of solution or product you're developing. Is it a software? Is it a hardware? Does it require a huge amount of research and development, or is it something easy to implement? Does it require to having a huge manufacturing facility, or is it something that can be implemented in a small workshop, let's say? So depending on the resources you need as a founder, you will be able to assess what is the round you need to raise, and accordingly, you should go after. Sometimes families and friends, they can issue you checks for $1 million, which usually an angel network is not able to even afford. So it really depends, again, on your connections, which family you come from, which friends you're friends with, and where you actually belong. And literally, I have a couple of startups who are actually Saudi founders, and another who's actually a Emirati founder. The first one raised 2.7 from family and friends. The second raised around 2 million from family and friends again, which is a huge round that usually you get from VCs. So again, depending where you are, who are your connections, you will be able to raise certain rounds. But logically speaking, it's literally first your family and friends and fans who would like to pitch in. You shouldn't expect a huge amount here, tens of thousands of dollars, not more. Then you would go for a higher round, which is from angel networks, who would be able to pitch 25,000 to 100,000, depending on the size of the angel networks. This is specific for the MENA usually, and the tickets we see in the MENA region. And then if you want to raise something bigger, you will have to go for VCs. So this is usually how the trajectory goes somehow. And something that Ahmed commented on, and I really agree with, validation does not need to have a huge amount. And frankly, for any investor, if you want to go to them and to tell them that I have this idea and I need your money to invest to explore it, I'm not sure how welcoming they will be. If they do not see that you are as committed in your idea, that you have invested time and some money of yours to actually bring it forward, I'm not sure how much they might really believe in you. Because if you believed in your idea, if it was successful as you're promising it to be, you will be able to pitch in some thousands of dollars or thousands of dirhams to actually make it happen. So not only your passion that you communicate, but also the passion you have acted on and the actions you have taken so far will make these investors actually write you this check and give it to you. So be careful to also assess how much are you going to be pitching into your company to invite others to pitch in your company as well. So this is a point I wanted to highlight, frankly, because we always hear it in the ecosystem, I need money to start. Have you started with your own?
No, and thank you for actually, yes, emphasizing that again, because again, money is definitely a very important resource when it comes to starting up your venture. But I also always say you have other resources that are available to you for free as a startup founder, and that is your time, and that's what you will invest in the validation, your effort or energy, and your knowledge as well, your experiential knowledge. That is very important, that you are investing that in your own business. And as you said, if you're not investing that, how are you expecting someone else to see the return on their investment when it comes to the financial? Okay, I'm going to ask one last question. Ahmed, go ahead.
No, I was just, I wanted to say to Shadi that when you take money from investors, that most of the time translates into jobs, right? It translates into salaries, and you want to scale up the team. And if your seduction power is good enough, you will seduce the right co-founders and team to come and work with you. And this is when you don't need that money to validate the idea that you have, and then go to an investor and say, listen, we built this thing for fun, and now we made that much money out of it. Would you like to invest so we can scale this 10 times?
Yeah, that's a valid point as well. Thank you, Ahmed. We have, this is the last question we're going to take because I'm respecting your time as well. What about the possibility of finding a co-founder? So Diala, let me start with you. We spoke about when to bring in investors or when to look for investors. What about co-founders?
Oh, I wish I had a definite answer for that. This is one of the hardest questions we ever get asked. Seriously. And literally, by pure chance, I got introduced to my co-founders. So I didn't get to like follow a certain approach to actually get to find them. However, there are different things that you can actually like work on. Number one, being careful of why do you need a co-founder? And is a co-founder integral for your own business, or is it someone that can be hired on certain agreement with them? So before you even say that you need a co-founder, just ask yourself why. What will they, again, add to the table in terms of resources, in terms of connections, in terms of expertise, in terms of time, what have you. And then try to find the co-founder. Once you know what you need to do, you have to develop a job description somehow. Of literally, what do you want this person to actually do? What do they want them to have or to be capable to do in terms of expertise, background, experience, what have you? And third, my best tool is LinkedIn. Earlier, I used to recommend my mentees to actually go to networking events, entrepreneurship events, because sometimes someone is really interested in the startup ecosystem, but they don't find the right resources to get started in this space. And you connecting the dots with them might bring you together as a team to build something really successful. But given that now physical events are halfway back in, not in all ecosystems. So my recommendation is to check LinkedIn. Really try to reach out to people per the job description you have developed with the skill sets you're really asking for, and just send them a message. Hello, I came across your profile. I'm interested to know if you're interested in joining a startup that does 1, 2, 3, 4. Happy to discuss further if this is of interest. And start somehow recruiting or hunting some of the people you might believe can add value to your team. Interview them. Be strict in your interview. This person is going to be joining your journey not for 1 year or 2 years where they can actually just resign and leave. You might be building an empire with them for years to come. So be careful in your interview and setting the questions, setting the expectations, setting your offerings even for them, and also in trying to convince them to actually take part in your venture and supporting you build your company.
Thank you, Diala. Leo, co-founder versus employee.
I was not able to say anything better than Diala said, including a template for the messaging. So it was awesome. I do agree with her. One thing that I would put on top of that is finding, after everything Diala said, finding someone who share the same purpose you have. This is probably going to be very important to keep this person passionate by solving the same problem you are solving, right? So it's something like that. And answering your question between co-founders or employees, I would say both. We're going to have necessity, you're going to have need for both in different moments. The difference is you may have someone as a co-founder, you're not having to pay a salary by the beginning. So this is the main difference, I would say, and trying to find someone that will be compromised with your company as well. So this is, I would say, co-founder by the very beginning, and then you don't necessarily need more co-founders. But one thing Diala said, that is, you have to complement each other. So if you're marketing, bring someone technical. If you're technical, bring someone financial or whatever. So just try to have everyone fulfilling the entire needs of the company or the startup.
I love that. Thank you, Leo. Ahmed, I'm going to take it a step further with you and ask, looking for a co-founder versus looking for a CEO of your company?
This is something that I spend really a lot of time trying to find the right co-founder. And I agree with Diala, but we have different styles, right? My style is I'm getting married and I need to know that person, like, you know, very well. We need to hang out, we need to travel together, see them under pressure and so on. And then, because, you know, it's so
true.
ugly.
It's
It's so ugly
relationship.
when you are in that kind of a relationship, especially that there is money involved, and then you cannot work with the same person, you cannot split. Like divorce is extremely hard in successful businesses, right? So that's one thing. I definitely would look for co-founders. For example, right now, so I was looking for a CTO for like 4 years. I'm a tech business that doesn't have a CTO, which was ridiculous. So every time we spoke to investors, they're like, okay, but who's building all of this stuff? Like, who's, you know, on top? And I'm like, it's me. Yeah, but you're also doing the CEO/CTO. And it was someone that I met when Cubic started. And, you know, I kept chasing her until she came back and she took that role. So it was more of like a hire. It was more like a hire. Yes, she got a stake into the business, but also it was, okay, now we can afford you, come back and here, you know. Do you need someone who gets along with you? Definitely. Do you need someone who is very similar to you? Absolutely not. So if you're the guy that knows the product, who's the person that knows the market? And who's the person that knows the finances? So I personally think that team, and especially the founders team, is, if a startup, regardless of what is it doing, will succeed or not. If it's the right team and they're all smart and they have this harmony between them and they have this chemistry between them and they are enjoying working together, it doesn't matter what they're building. One of them will say, guys, this is not working, let's pivot. The rest will agree and they will pivot together. It is the most important element, probably even more than passion, you know. So it is, if the team is right, it will work sooner or later. This is a promising thing. That's my opinion.
Well, thank you for that, Ahmed. I think I can go on for another 2 hours with you guys, and I know that I've got to respect your time. I've got to respect the time of everyone that's come here. So I would love, please, to ask you one wrap-up question that goes to all of you. If you are, from where you stand today and from all the experiences you've had to build up your successful ventures, what would be one advice that you would give to someone starting today, someone enrolling and signing up for Founder Institute Qatar, next cohort, to build up their business? What can you tell them today that would be kind of not necessarily everything you've learned, but a good sum up of your experiences? Leo, I'm going to start with you, please.
Tough. And being the first is even tougher.
I usually say top 3, but this time I said just one.
Yeah, and this is a good one. I would say one important thing that I do believe it's going to make everything happens more. I don't know if it's easier, but probably more help you to drive success is solving a real problem. So find a real problem. You don't have to dedicate your time, the most valuable thing you have in life, to do anything than helping people solving their problems, or companies solving their problems. So try to find that and go for it.
I love that. Coming from a place of service, always very important. Diala, what's your one? Thank you, Leo.
Given it's one thing, I'm really happy that Leo already talked about the problem and Ahmed already talked about the team. So these are my favorite 2 first advice.
Now it's your third
takeaway. Exactly, but nobody's counting. But frankly, for me, the advice I would give it for any entrepreneur is to frankly be resourceful. So don't make assumptions. Try to find answers to any question you might have. You might think validation is expensive. Try to ask, is it really expensive? Can I do it with $0? What are the other alternatives to get it done? You need investment. Okay, we know about angel investors. We know about VCs. What other alternatives exist? Can I take a loan, a personal loan, let's say, in case it's an option for you or in case it's applicable to your business? Can I join accelerators, incubators who give some cash prizes at the end of the cohorts? What other alternatives do I have? So for any assumption you make about your startup, try to really be resourceful and research what can be done as well, or what can alternatively be done in order to help your expansion and your own growth as a startup. So this is my favorite advice, frankly.
Thank you, Diala. Ahmed, we have find a problem to solve, be resourceful, which is also very important. Tony Robbins always speaks about that. He's like, it's about resourcefulness, not the resources that you've got. What would be the third single advice from your end, third to add to the list?
I would say stop trying to be interesting and be interested in what you're doing.
That's interesting.
Because then if you approach problems that way, if you stop sitting on the other side of the table and you stand up and you sit next to your customer, trying to be in their shoe for real, solve the problem, like we really used to think, okay, my customer woke up today in the morning, they were in a bad mood, and then they went to work, and we didn't even get to the problem yet, you know. We try to think every single aspect of their life. You will solve any problem, but stop trying to shine. Be for real interested in the problem that you're trying to solve and approach it from that perspective. It will roll with everything that you're trying to do. When you're trying to build a product, when you're trying to speak to an investor, what do they want? What do they want to, like, why are they investing in you? So stop trying to shine and be interesting. Just be interested in the problem that you're solving.
I love that. And that's not just about being customer centric, but you're being stakeholder centric. So every stakeholder in your business, you're paying attention to their needs as well. So you're serving them, again, coming from a place of service. Thank you so much. Thank you, Diala. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Ahmed. This has been a very, very insightful discussion. Thank you to everyone who joined us for your questions. It definitely helped us get more interested and interesting in this conversation. I loved it. I hope that you guys could stick around for some networking on AirMeet. Katie has just put up the link over here. And as always, please do join us in Founder Institute. As you can see, we've got a very vast and very experienced network of mentors and speakers from around the world. We're also got the structured program of 14 weeks to help you kickstart that idea that you've been holding on to for some time, and it's now time to take it to action. Now is always the time. So thank you once again. Good evening from Qatar, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much, dear speakers and friends, and we'll see you on our next events. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.